First reading is from 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elisha replied. "So be quiet." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Jericho." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," he replied. "So be quiet." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to the Jordan." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." So the two of them walked on. 50 men from the company of the prophets went and stood at a distance, facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. "You have asked a difficult thing," Elijah said. "Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not." As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots are horsemen of Israel." And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it in two. And our second reading is from Mark chapter 9, verses 2 to 9. The transfiguration. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say. They were so frightened. Then a cloud appeared and covered them, and a voice came from the cloud, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead.
A couple of action-packed stories in the Bible today that we read. The first one from 2 Kings, this colour and light show of Elijah and Elisha. Elijah telling Elisha that he was going to have to leave him, and all the prophets backing him up. And then all this, it's full of beautiful magical symbolism. Parting of the river, them having to go through on the other side to a separate place where they could be alone. And then this chariots of fire swooping down out of the heavens, and Elijah hopping on and getting taken away in this chariot of fire. And then this image at the end, which really has always sat with me in this story, of Elisha totally shattered, because the one who was not only his master, but a sense of someone who he carried the vision for him, was somehow gone. And there's that image of him tearing his clothes in two as a sign of his anguish and grief. So there's a transfiguration in that, but it's a tough one for Elisha particularly. And then we have the story from the Gospel of Mark, the story of the transfiguration, which is told in Matthew, Mark and Luke, which tells us what? Well, that's important in the story of Jesus, for it to be told. And the way Mark tells it is a little bit more succinct than a couple of the others. But in this story, the disciples, Peter, James and John, not all of them, are with Jesus, and it's sort of set in the midst of the gospel, so it's not at the beginning and not at the end, but it is set after Jesus has taken the disciples aside and said, "Hey, guys, you've heard what I've been teaching, you've seen what I've been doing in healing and all that sort of stuff, but I want you to know that I'm going to be crucified. They're going to take me away and I'm going to be killed. I'm going to die, and also then I'll be raised." But I think they just hear the death part. And he asks them to brace themselves for what will be a tough time for them too, saying, if you're really going to follow me, it's not going to be easy. So this story of transfiguration is set just after that, and you can imagine how they would have felt. I think summarised in the words shell-shocked would probably be it, wouldn't you think? So after that, Mark has us seeing that these Peter, James and John, representing I think all the disciples, coming with Jesus, and Jesus going up a mountain, and at the top of the mountain they're obviously able to still see Jesus, and they see him with Elijah and with Moses, two powerful figures in the history of Israel. Sort of a sense that if you are wanting to be given credibility as a Messiah, they're the ones you choose. Elijah, who hadn't never died, he'd been taken away in the chariots of fire, and who the people of Israel were still expecting to return at a special moment. And Moses, who was the founder of the law. They were the ones seen with Jesus up on the mountain. But in a sense, that sort of adds credibility to Jesus. But can you remember what happened then in the story?
The voice.
There's a voice, that's after.
The disciples wanted to build like a monument.
Yeah, that's a bit after too. But the next bit that happens is he was seen to be shining, radiant. And his clothes were so bright that no amount of Omo could get it that white. No amount of washing in the world would get clothes that white. And that's another symbol and sign of this transfiguration, this change. And yes, then he comes down, and the disciples say, "Well, let's build you a booth, or a box, or two or three." Well, actually, no. It's sort of like a place that they can. They want to, in a sense, build him a little church. They call it. The word is actually booth or tent. It can be translated as either, but it's sort of like a memorial to this occasion. This is going to be a sacred, special place, this mountain, where everybody can come along and say this is where it all happened. And Jesus says something, well, Jesus basically lets them know that that's not a helpful response, that they've missed the point if that's what they've got. It's interesting though that I think, this event is an event of great mystery and wonder, and what we often do with things we don't understand is try and put them in boxes so we can contain them. But the whole thing of the transfiguration is that could not be contained, I don't think. It's ironic to me that on the very spot that when you go touring Israel, on the spot which is supposed to be the spot of the transfiguration, there's not a booth, but there is a massive church. There is a massive, beautiful, beautiful church, which tries, that's the outside of it. And inside of it, there's this amazing fresco on the ceiling in gold and blue paint that really is an amazing and beautiful thing to see. A little ironic when Jesus says, actually don't do that. What do? We do it anyway. We do it better and bigger. Yes, I saw this cartoon and I thought it was a bit... It's just like nowadays, if they'd seen the disciples and they had mobile phones, they would have said, Jesus, just bunched together with Elijah and Moses so I can get you in the shot, and taken it and put it on Instagram or something. I like this quote, which is actually by a theologian who I should name. See, I'm quoting him. Let's see if I can find him. Never mind. Oh, that's right. Douglas Hall. He says, one suspects that our Western concepts of God are the answers that we give to depth experiences that are too basically unsettling to remain undefined and unnamed. Better name it straight away, otherwise what control can we claim? So what the disciples were trying to do was, in a sense, contain this mystery, this awesome occasion. But what I feel like in the story of Jesus, what Jesus was trying to give them was something that would help, that's an occasion, a moment, a mystery that they could hold on to, that would sustain them through hard times. A vision, in a sense. It's because they had to come down from the mountain with Jesus and continue into... It was as if nothing happened. I guess Jesus' clothes got dirty again fairly quickly and things got ordinary, but they would still have that sense of that memory of that holy occasion.
Do we know that they remember it? Is it referred to? No, I just wondered. It's almost like, to me, it's almost like a dream. You have this fantastic dream. Yeah. You wake up and you go, wow, that was a great dream. And then 5 minutes later, it gets a bit more fuzzy. And then another 15 minutes later, and it's gone.
Yeah.
But obviously it's made an impression. This is just my own experience with dreams, and I've seen it written that way as well in books. That you have this fantastic experience and it doesn't stay with you, or in your maybe in your subconscious, but not in your conscious.
Yeah.
I think the thing that the mystics point out, though, is that this type of experience, if someone has it, it stays with them forever, and every time they go back and revisit that experience, it becomes I'm tingling all over. It becomes completely alive again. Yeah. And if they take the time, then they can go straight back into the same experience. And it's very deep and meaningful.
Yeah. I guess I'd say that to the fact that the story is repeated in those three Gospels and put at the heart of this Gospel certainly suggests to me that whether it's historical or a dream moment, it's something that they held as an important sign of the whole of what Jesus was about. Maybe it gave them that tingly feeling. I don't know, but certainly, you know, I guess the question comes because after this, they don't lose the questions, do they? I mean, we've still got Peter doubting and all sorts of things happening that have the disciples in all sorts of disarray at different times, which I sort of like because it sort of gives us a bit of an excuse. Here, we have those holy moments too. I think we have, many of us, not everybody, but has moments of where we touch the mystery, and maybe we hang on to that. But it transforms that moment, and we can look back on it. But it doesn't necessarily take away all our questions. I think our questions are a part of it. I think our questions are a part of that journey. So, whether it happens for you here in church, which is where of course all the holy moments happen, or walking in the bush, or just spontaneously, completely out of the blue, the next step is always the same. We come back from that special moment to the ordinary. Jesus leads us back down the mountain to reconnect with the activity and demands of normal life, with its pain and struggle. But the gift is that normal life, with all its pain and struggle, somehow maybe doesn't look quite the same as it did before. And perhaps you can re-enter your life with a new vision of what it's all about. That doesn't take away our questions, like I said. But like the disciples, they probably came away from the mountaintop, I reckon, with more questions. But somehow, through that mountaintop moment, they experienced the eternal in the present, the holy in the ordinary as well, and the mountaintop at this intersection of their lives. So may this mystery find you in this story and in your own stories, this day and every day. Amen. I've got an affirmation of faith. I don't always do an affirmation of faith, but I invite you to have a quick read of it, and if you feel like you can say it, then please do. And if you don't, that's good too. Let us affirm our faith together. We believe in a God who is never confined to our imagining, is never in bondage to our beliefs, and never held fast in our dwelling places. Our God is the mystery of divine and human bound together, of power and vulnerability, of crucifixion and resurrection. Our God is the wonder of truth and compassion, of liberation and responsibility, of eternal wisdom and costly grace. We celebrate this God who leaps free of all our boundaries in love, stretching out from horizon to horizon, and in mercy bending deep into fragile human hearts. Amen. Before that, a friend of mine, a friend of Susan mine, by the name of Joel, wrote a song quite a number of years ago for which I've never sung, but it's a question. I really like it because it's a song that talks about the questions that we have and how, in a sense, faith sits in the midst of those questions. And it's called "That's a Good Question." clicky chord changes coming. I'm going to excuse myself right now. We who wander the wilderness are left to wonder what kind of promised land it is we're searching for, and how we are to live the lives we've got. So much to offer, but there's many things we know. We don't know. We who wander the city streets, so watch from farmland, don't really understand